I'm Olivia Mitchell, 32, and I've been developing my tech business for 5 years. My family thought I was wasting my talent tonight, so I remained silent. My fiancé recently acknowledged me as the creator of the app at his brother's engagement banquet, which her firm purchased for millions of dollars. When she muttered, "Wait, you're the founder of Next Tech?" My parents' expressions were priceless. My brother's jaw is still on the ground after the holiday dinner where they pitted me. Please hit like and subscribe if you're seeing this from a place where your dreams are disregarded. Below, growing up in the immaculate suburb of Highland Park, north of Chicago, meant my father, Richard Mitchell, lived up to certain expectations and wasn't just a... When things got complicated, my mother Diana ordered other doctors to consult him as the surgeon. Courtrooms as a business lawyer who never lost a case, followed by my older brother Jason, and Our home was lovely, and our firstborn was flawless, following our father's career route into medicine without making any mistakes. However, the purpose of the dinner table was not only to eat, it was also to report. Accomplishments Jason always has, so what did everyone do today? Mom would usually begin the evenings with that. Something remarkable, flawless test results, scientific fair triumphs, and volunteer hours. When it was my turn, my responses at esteemed hospitals were never quite up to par. I created a website for fun, and once declared that I was quite proud of learning HTML and CSS on my own at the age of 15. Mom said, "That's nice, honey, this weekend," with that special smile that didn't reach her eyes. "But shouldn't you be concentrating on getting ready for your debate team? Colleges seek long-term commitments." Dad would nod along without any hobbies, then turn to inquire about Jason's advanced. The message of the biology project was unambiguous. Computers were toys, a true accomplishment. Occurred in courtrooms and operation rooms, and my bedroom turned into a haven where I could retreat to programming languages and online discussion boards without bias, while Jason's walls showcased my framed academic honors. I would stay up until 2 in the morning with printouts of code and sketches of app interfaces, learning JavaScript and Python, then dragging myself through the following chemistry lesson. My parents didn't notice my fatigue until it had an impact on my academics. I created a program at the age of 16 that assisted in planning the huge yearly fundraising for my school. When my program slashed their planning time in half, Mrs. Winters was astounded. At a school occasion, my daughter told my parents that she had a unique skill. Mom said politely, "Olivia has a lot of interests, but we're concentrating on getting her law school prerequisites in order." Essentially, they had already determined my destiny through the regional coding competition, even though I hadn't even considered applying to law school. Was a turning point in my junior year following months of preparation. I constructed an inventory management system that qualified for the finals, and the tournament ended on the same, "We're so sorry, but Saturday is Jason's medical school acceptance party. Your brother spent his entire life for this, sweetie," Mom replied, not seeming very regretful. Okay, so perhaps the next time I competed, I would be the only student without family support and took first place among the professional software experts who judged the competition. Told me that I had innate talent and vision that was beyond my years. I returned home with my prize to see our home crowded with family members commemorating Jason's accomplishment, which deserved a brief, amazing gift from Dad before he went. Back to toasting my brother that evening, I decided I would be successful. Without their approval, I would construct something they couldn't discount or minimize that would make them witness my senior year of college applications and the pressure from parents to apply to Ivy League universities. I instead applied to state institutions with robust pre-law programs, outstanding departments of computer science when I was accepted to Illinois Tech, together with its generous merit scholarship. My parents said, "You're throwing away your potential," as if I had told them I was going to join the circus. With every phrase, Dad expressed disappointment. "Your exam results might get you," Mom asked, raising her voice. "That's not into Yale computer science at all, a field for someone with your level of ability." They intended to say that it's not a field. During his first year of medical school, Jason attempted to find a home worthy of a Mitchell Intercede in his kind but patronizing manner. Perhaps it's only a phase, and Mum let her vent. Institution. But I also had to deal with my parents' expectations when I departed for college that fall before law school. I could finally lose myself in what I was doing with a sense of lightness that I had never experienced before. Loved without unrelenting criticism, which I understood to be what my family considered failure. Liberation at Illinois served as the first step in helping me discover my own collegiate route. I was Olivia, the student who was wasting her potential playing computer games, not the daughter who, for the first time, I discovered that her creative solutions to programming problems were praised by her academics. I was surrounded by people who understood my language and appreciated my abilities. In my advanced programming class my sophomore year, I met Emma Rodriguez, whereas the majority of students had trouble with Emma and I completed the final assignment in half the time allotted. And we added features. We started going out for coffee after class for fun, talking about technology and its unrealized potential in the healthcare system till the campus cafe closed. Broken Emma claimed that one evening, an item regarding medical issues appeared on her laptop. Due to communication issues, her mother had previously received 3 incorrect diagnoses. When lupus patients are finally receiving the right care, doctors can work miracles. But they are unable to successfully interact with one another or their patients. So that discussion triggered something. Over the next week, we drew concepts on white bars and napkins, imagining a platform that will transform the way medical patients and providers exchanged information. And by the conclusion of the semester, we had the returning home was the skeleton of what would eventually become next summer break. At family get-togethers, where nothing had changed, the first thing that relatives asked Jason was about his health. When I was changing to a genuine major, I began to give evasive replies to the first inquiry they asked me during residency, about researching technologies that facilitated rapid communication. Computer-related topics are becoming more and more popular. I'm sure you can find some entry-level job when you graduate. Maybe it will support you, Uncle said dismissively. They were unaware that Emma and I were using every spare moment to construct our prototype, which we accomplished from her parents. They kindly cleared a garage in Chicago for her family and us, gave us sandwiches, and inquired about our development, something my own family was unable to do. By our junior year, we had a functional beta version that we launched, winning enough cash from entrepreneurship contests to apply for patents and incorporate our company as a professor, introduced us to Dr. Harriet Chin, a disgruntled hospital administrator who served as our initial advisor and ultimately, this could transform patient outcomes, said Dr. Chin, our first paying client. Asked, how soon can we implement a pilot program? After viewing our demo. Meanwhile, at Thanksgiving dinner my senior year, my father cornered me by the dessert table, using my mother's name in a way that suggested a united parental front that we're worried about. He said, talking. Your employment possibilities, Jason can assist you in obtaining a secure administrative role at his hospital while I took a long breath, figured things out, and am currently working on beginning a business. Olivia, be serious. His chuckle wasn't mean, it was just disbelieving. Get a real job first, since you need experience before you can consider starting your own business. That was the last time I tried. Telling my family about my work life hurt too much because I put a lot of effort into it. As a youthful dream, Emma and I moved into a little flat in the South Loop of Chicago after graduating. Survived on coffee and ramen while coding until our eyes burned. We took on side jobs to design websites in order to pay our first rent. Next T's office was a co-working space corner desk that we could hardly afford. Gradually acquired traction. We were able to hire our first employee thanks to a little angel investment from one of our competition judges. Employee, Tyler, a talented developer. We were able to secure a contract with a regional medical center, followed by another with an outpatient clinic network. Conversations were only surface level when I called home, but my work was good. Say they assumed I was making it in some entry-level tech and never pressed for details when I inquired. Support role, Jason revealed his engagement to a prospective pharmaceutical salesperson. When family members inquired about my parents' wedding plans, they smiled proudly. "You know Olivia," my mother replied when she discovered me by myself in the kitchen later. Jason's friend Mark, who is single, is refilling her wine glass as he finishes his "I could set up an introduction for my neurology residency." And the "I" subtext was obvious. If I couldn't succeed myself and my family didn't notice our user base expanding, at least I could marry success. Medical publications started publishing reports of hospitals showing dramatically lower errors and higher patient satisfaction. "We must discuss scalability in order to detect the influence of our platform," Emma stated, distributing invitations to investor meetings around our desk one morning. By the time I turned 26, Nextech had 30 employees, and we couldn't meet demand. I had secured $5 million in startup money and relocated to a simple yet stunning could afford to pay off my student loans and have a flat with a view of Lake Michigan. I still drove my old college car and dressed casual clothes when I went to see my parents. Clothing that allowed them to continue telling the story of my suffering, but it wasn't no longer about disproving them. Rather, it was about preserving something valuable from those who had I never appreciated it because I wanted to succeed on my terms, not as a compromise that my rootwood was true after everything, and I was growing apart from my two worlds. I was the daughter of a tech entrepreneur who was starting to receive attention from industry journals, unable to reach her full potential. At times, the cognitive dissonance was too much to handle. On a Tuesday morning in April, the email from Memorial Health System reached me. Before summoning Emma into my office, I read it 3 times. They want to apply it next over their whole network, so I stated Emma fainted in 27 hospitals across 3 states. My voice scarcely audible above a whisper. I ended up by settling into the chair opposite from my desk, which is the biggest healthcare provider in the Midwest. It felt unreal to finally reach this point after years of building towards it. The deal would make us a major player and increase our revenue tenfold. Within hours, our phones were ringing with calls from health tech players, other healthcare systems who were curious about what Memorial had observed in us the next month. We received our first $30 million acquisition offer from a bigger software business. Emma and I sat in a modern conference room. We hear business leaders twice our age justify why we should accept their salary and work for them. As we made our way back to our office, Emma added, "It's a generous offer," and I accepted. And, rejecting it because we both understood that Nextech was more valuable than money, and that it was about creating something that truly made a difference for individuals. And 2 weeks later, venture financing, we weren't prepared to relinquish control. Sierra Partners, a corporation that valued our business, offered $30 million for a minority investment. This time, we agreed that the investment would enable us to. When the press release was sent out, I asked that we expand without abandoning our vision. That the stories just use my first name, Olivia, as the co-founder and CEO. Usually, the purpose of having Emma's picture next to a silhouette of my name was control rather than concealment. After an industry conference, Emma questioned, "My narrative, don't you want recognition?" Where I purposefully maintained a low profile and said, "You've earned it." "I do," I acknowledged. I couldn't even explain to Emma, just not yet, and not from strangers. I wanted my family to see me because of my complex relationship with affirmation, really see me, but I wasn't sure I could stand it when they minimized or claimed credit for my accomplishment. Unquestionably, I had to have this all to myself before sharing it. Building an empire in secret had a certain impact, and in tech circles, I was starting to be recognized as the clever but reserved ghost founder of Nextech's groundbreaking platform is the lone enigma. improved my reputation, and they wanted to see my profile in Tech World magazine next. Pictures of both founders, but I only negotiated Emma's unambiguous picture and myself. The article commended our leadership and inventiveness while featuring a behind-the-scenes photo of our expanding office. As I desired, without going into my past, at the age of 28, I was on paper. I was a multimillionaire who purchased a gorgeous condo in downtown Chicago, but kept it simple and inconspicuous. And when family members inquired about my flat, I gave a hazy description of it as a little apartment with roommates, giving them the impression that I was still having problems with my assistant, Kayla, was obviously aware of everything, and our circle of trust remained small. Recognized the family's predicament after planning too many family gatherings and turning down invites to Dr. Winters, my therapist, assisted me in processing the mixed feelings associated with achievement. During one session, Dr. Winters inquired, "What are you waiting for?" without acknowledgement. What time would be best to inform them? I gave the question much thought, and I want it to be so obvious that it's too enormous for them to explain or claim credit for, and they tell me I'm just lucky and I want to be totally okay with never receiving their approval, so even if they don't, Dr. Winters, I'll be all right. I remarked, "Are you working towards that peace every day?" And I nodded thoughtfully. Building Nextech involved more than just developing cutting-edge technology. It was about establishing myself apart from the standards that shaped my childhood. I wasn't blind to the irony that although our brother had pursued a career in medicine like our father, I was the one who transformed healthcare, being utilized by more than 200 healthcare facilities around the country. According to studies, decreased 43% of communication failures and raised patient satisfaction ratings by 38% every few months, typically following a family get-together. Where I've been discreetly pitted, I would retrieve user data and our company's worth from vanity, but as a reminder that value wasn't determined by approval from others. When old fears started to rise and there were rumors of possible threats, the figures helped me stay grounded. Purchased by Horizon Health Technologies, one of the nation's biggest providers of health software, after rejecting multiple offers, our initial outreach was hesitant to see if we might consider one. They're discussing at least $200 million, Emma stated, following an exploratory lunch with $200 million for their development director, a sum that would garner media attention that would be tough to ignore, especially for my achievement-focused family. A part of me questioned whether now would be the time to emerge from the shadows, while another part of me was hesitant because, when my worlds finally converge, what would it mean to be suddenly observed by those who have spent a lifetime together? I didn't have much time to think about these issues because life was about to throw me into the most unexpectedly. My mother called me on a Sunday afternoon while I was examining the quarterly forecasts. Olivia made the amazing announcement without preamble. Jason and Sophia are planning a date for Labor Day weekend. You'll need to clear your calendar for an engagement dinner at Bluebird next month. Bluebird was Chicago's newest, without connections, or a 3-month wait. It would be difficult to enter the Michelin-starred restaurant. Therefore, it was obvious that Jason was pulling strings through his hospital board contacts, which is fantastic. And I added that I was very delighted for my brother. In spite of our complex connection, I will be there, and it will be great. My mother's voice changed to a more critical tone, and Olivia, since it's a high-end event, maybe we need to go. Searching for anything suitable, I observed that your clothes are still extremely conservative when I looked down at them over Christmas. My ensemble, which included a fine silk shirt and tailored trousers, cost more than most people's monthly rent. I'll find someone appropriate, Mom, so don't worry too much if your Sophia works for a large corporation. And it was clear from the doubt in her voice that everyone will be dressed for the technology company's highly stunning lady executive track. I nearly laughed as she tried to convey the absurdity of her worry, but instead I took a, "What technological company does she work for?" "Oh, something about health." Take a big breath. I can't remember exactly what Jason says about Systems Horizon, but my heart skipped a beat because Horizon Health Technologies is a significant company in their area. Negotiating to pay hundreds of millions of dollars to purchase necks isn't possible. In an attempt to keep my identity private, I asked my mother whether she knew Sophia's last name. Why do you ask Sophia Winters her name? Voice casual Winters wasn't acquainted from our acquisition discussions, but Horizon was a huge business with thousands of workers that was still the after hanging up. I contacted Emma right away because the connection was uneasy, and I said, "You're not..." I explained that my brother is engaged to someone from Horizon. I said, "Are you going to believe this?" Coincidentally, Emma thoughtfully responded, "Do you think it will complicate the acquisition?" "I'm not sure. But before that supper, I need to know who she is." A simple search on LinkedIn showed that Sophia Winters was, as Director of Strategic Acquisitions at Horizon, she would most likely be engaged in the upcoming tech merger, spearheading it, and we would be seated across from one another at my brother's engagement dinner in a few weeks. I was thought to be an underutilized tech support worker by everyone. The universe has a perverse sense of humor. The pressure from my family grew, and my mother called twice more as dinner time drew near. My father left a voicemail regarding my outfit, asking me to bring anything noteworthy about my professional background to talk with Sophia's parents, who were highly successful individuals, 1 week before to Olivia. "I need to talk to you about the most agonizing call I received during supper." My mother started speaking in a lawyer's tone, which is never a good sign. "Last night when my father and I were speaking with the Winters, they inquired about you, and Jason said you were my stomach constricted between jobs. But I'm not between jobs, Mum, at least not that much." Jason's work at the computer help desk wasn't particularly noteworthy. He was merely attempting to ease the idea is that Sophia's father may be able to hire entry-level IT personnel at Apple, so we may get you on a good career path at last. The discarding of my work was casual, and it was assumed that I needed to be saved. Total lack of interest in what I had been doing for the last 5 years. It all came crashing down in a tsunami of mom, thank you for the thought. But I'm content with my current situation. Don't be proud, Olivia. This is a tight position and controlled emotion in my voice. Genuine chance for us all to begin somewhere. I called and hung up. Rachel, a buddy from my youth, had just returned to Chicago, unlike my Rachel from my family. Has always encouraged me to pursue my goals, even if she didn't quite. Throughout the years, she had developed into one of the few individuals who truly understood Next Tech. They set you up. Rachel's outrage on my behalf at a pitiful job interview was just what I needed, and you're in the midst of a $200 million purchase agreement, which is wealthy even for your parents. The worst thing is that my brother's fiancée is actually the one negotiating the purchase of my business, I mentioned. I'm giggling at the ridiculousness, and nobody in my family understands, so what are you? Going to wear jeans and a sweatshirt as they anticipate, or come up in full CEO mode and observe their I'm not just going to be myself, but I really thought about the question. Rachel's brows went up. Pretend, no big revelation, no games, just dignity. I responded, "That's very mature of you. 5 years of therapy will do that." Little smile except from the fact that if they find out, I'm done attempting to convince them of anything. They learn that I won't conceal, but I also won't perform. Either the final $215 million acquisition offer for Dinner Horizon arrived the night before. Emma and I were formally on a contract that would keep us at the company for at least 3 years after the acquisition. On the cusp of becoming cent millionaires, since I chose a basic yet sophisticated black whatever occurred tomorrow night. I felt oddly at ease as I dressed for the meal, realized my value, and that no one could ever take it away from me. Bluebird Restaurant crystal chandeliers live up to their name by adding a cozy glow on blue velvet, shining silver tables and bonnets, and a wall of windows that looked out over the eye arrived precisely on the Chicago River, where the city lights were mirrored on its dark surface. Not early enough to assist with preparations, as my mother had recommended. Not too late to arrive, but on time and with dignity, like my father was watching as the entrepreneur who was the hostess escorted me to a separate dining room where my family had already assembled. The bar having a lively discussion with an elderly man I thought was Mr. Winters, my Jason noticed me as my mother fiddled with place cards at the big table, changing them for the best social engineering. The first time you made it, he came across the room and gave me a simple embrace. Meet Sophia, who stood tall and confident by the window, and who has never doubted his place in the world. Gorgeous in a burgundy gown, with her black hair styled in an elegant updo. Although I had never met her in person during our meeting, I instantly recognized her from Horizon's executive website. Sophia, this is my sister, Olivia. The discussions had been managed through middlemen until this last phase. Jason, who usually introduced me to his successful buddies in a tone that was a little sorry, added, "It's so nice to meet you at last," Sophia remarked, holding out her hand. "Jason talks about you often." I was unsure of his exact words, but he grinned and shook her, holding, "Congratulations on your engagement. I'm happy for you both." Mother showed up at my elbow, Olivia, and I noticed you had found a great outfit. Pause said a lot. You and your cousin Margaret always got along. According to her translation, I was placed far away from the dinner's important guests. Started with champagne and toasts, and my father raised his glass first to my son who has made us proud every day of his life, Jason and Sophia, he stated. And to Sophia, a brilliant, accomplished woman, he said in an emotionally charged voice. We couldn't wish for a greater addition to our family than him. My mother's toast came after a meticulous produced a speech that emphasized Jason's accomplishments, including his recent promotion to chief and his first triumph at a science fair. Final statement she made to the resident was, and now he's found a partner equally dedicated to excellence to Jason and Sophia. As my glasses clinked, I saw Sophia staring at me with a small furrow on her forehead, as though she was attempting to put me in. After the first dish arrived and the talk began, there was some background information beyond Jason's underachieving sister. My cousin Margaret inquired about my employment status using a tactful manner of, I work on health technology, so when someone asked about a terminal sickness, I replied, simply database. Management is not false, just dramatically understated, she said. Oh, that's nice. Is there potential for progress in that sector before I could, using the same tone my mother had previously used? Olivia Jason, our uncle, leaned across the table and said, you might have a lead on a job at Apple, which would be a significant advancement for you. I took a long, taking a sip of water. I'm truly happy with the work I'm doing now. Parent overheard and joined Olivia, proving that it's acceptable to seek assistance in order to gain entry into a prestigious establishment. From across the table, I saw Sophia looking at me more carefully now. We all want to see you succeed. During a pause in conversation, Olivia said. Recognition was dawning in her eyes, her voice piercing through. I apologize for the background noise, but the table seemed calm. Is your last name Mitchell? Jason was perplexed, but it was evident that she was my sister. Sophia's eyes widened. Olivia Mitchell from Next Tech you are, and that's when I said. Simply Sophia sat down, which was hated and secretly anticipated for years. Wait, you're the company's creator. Her fork makes a tiny clink against the beautiful china. Olivia Mitchell was the one who abruptly stopped herself after realizing that Jason chuckled uneasily in a public place. Sophia, I believe you're mistaking Olivia. Sophia didn't say anything about my sister working in tech support or whatever with someone else. Slowly staring at me, your sister is the CEO and founder of Next Tech, the platform for healthcare communication that is transforming patient care nationwide, is the business that the company is now in the last stages of talks to pay more than $200 million for the... There was complete silence after that, and my father froze with his wine glass halfway. Jason's mouth was where my mother's hand flitted to her pearl necklace. Literally hung open, is this real? My father eventually succeeded in getting me to look him in the eye. Yes. Emma Rodriguez and I established Nextech 6 years ago. Presently provide services to more than 300 healthcare facilities around the country and employ over 70 individuals. But why wouldn't you tell us that before I could respond to Sophia, my mother was truly perplexed, maintained her professional manner while displaying sincere excitement for in the first year, the technology decreased drug errors at Boston General by 62%. How physicians obtain patient data has been completely transformed by the interface design. Been attempting to create something comparable for years, but your answer is a few years ahead of schedule, therefore we're prepared to pay such a high price to get you, and my family looked at me like they were $200 strangers. Sophia nodded as my father's voice grew softer, and the purchase is scheduled too. She turned to me and smiled slightly embarrassedly, saying, "Close next week, pending final approval." I had no idea you were Olivia. Without a photo. And our teams are the only things displayed on your firm profile, Jason's sister, have been managing the talks. And I would rather keep a low profile, I stated. The remainder of the supper was a haze of startled inquiries and uncomfortable silence. Disclosures. My mother remarked 3 times that relatives who had pitied me an hour earlier now requested for guidance on investments, that she was always aware of my unique computer skills, according to what my father said. For years, Jason alone stayed largely silent, despite sharing his daughter's success as a software entrepreneur with his co-workers, thinking about his struggling younger sister's impending sale of her business for a price that surpassed his whole anticipated lifetime income as a doctor, and throughout it all, I kept my calmly responding to inquiries in a courteous manner, without the frantic need for acceptance that had characterized so much of the approval I had formerly sought in my previous life now felt insubstantial in light of. As the evening wore me down, Sophia drew me away from their sudden opportunistic pride. Apart from that, I apologize if I caused any awkwardness. I was just shocked when grinned, really. Don't feel bad about it. It's been long overdue. She also mentioned that your industry reputation is exceptional. I now see why you, the ghost genius, kept such a low profile as we. My mother held my arm as we said our goodbyes. We must have a proper conversation with Olivia soon. Discuss everything. I nodded, understanding that the discussion would inevitably come up. But no, I felt lighter. In some way, after we stopped being afraid of it and started heading to my car, eventually came out in the open, and I would face whatever occurred next. On my own terms, confident in my understanding of the first paragraph I created, came before I had even returned home from supper with my mother. We need to discuss brunch. My phone was inundated with relatives at 11 in the morning tomorrow at the Drake Hotel. I then recalled that my cousins, who hadn't spoken to me in years, had always encouraged my computer hobbies. Jason sent 3 different messages, one after the other, suggesting investment opportunities. More perplexed than the previous one, leading to a straightforward "why didn't you tell me?" merely responded to my parents' agreement to have brunch. Some discussions had to take place in the Drake's dining room. Was tasteful and understated. Ideal for the challenging talk my parents would have to have. Were seated when I got there, both of them immaculately attired as though they were attending a crucial business meeting instead of Olivia, my father, stood awkwardly during the family meal, alternating between his customary prefix greeting and something more appropriate for a daughter he had recently learned about was really successful. "You look good," and I settled on an awkward hug. My mother was less controlled. "We have a lot to talk about, sweetie. This morning, I read a ton about Nextech, the Innovation Awards. I took a close look at the funding rounds and user growth figures. Why would you hide all of this from us, your family? Breathe." I believe you understand why I don't. My father's. Tone defensive. The waiter brought coffee, and we've always encouraged your endeavors, allowing me time to gather my thoughts. After he departed, I gazed straight. You didn't take my fascination with technology seriously when I was with my parents. When I attempted to show you my work, it was written off as a pastime to help me decompress before I could find a genuine career. It became easier to give up after a while, which is unfair, Mom. We only wanted what was best for you, the IT industry seemed to protest. I wasn't sure if you wanted me to take a route you understood and approved of, so I gently corrected when I decided otherwise. You viewed it as a failure, and my father leaned forward. We were only encouraging you to succeed, Olivia. But I always knew you had promise. There's a difference, and it's obvious that you were forcing me to conform. Concluded, he retorted, Look at what you've done. Maybe our pushing helped inspire you. It was the exact reaction I had anticipated and feared, taking credit for accomplishments in which they had no part. In changing the course of history, to portray themselves as encouraging mentors instead of snide critics, Dad, do you recall urging me to find a legitimate job at recommending that I accept an administrative role at Jason's hospital due to my own work, or Thanksgiving 5 years ago wasn't feasible, Mom? Do you recall setting up a pitiful job interview for me? My mother showed me grace just last week. To appear ashamed, we were worried about you, but you never gave us any information. Regarding your work, how could we have known? You may have actually asked with sincere curiosity rather than merely anticipating a response that validated your preconceived notions about me. As the talk progressed, my mother vacillated between mimosas and eggs Benedict, which were painful but necessary. Defensiveness, and my father's sincere attempts at reconciliation attempted to uphold his power by implying that he had always recognized my untapped potential. Your brother always spoke highly of your intelligence, my mother said, as though Jason's endorsement validated me in the past. I know you. I finally remarked, they both love me. But love without understanding or respect isn't enough for you to recognize me for who I truly am, not what he intended me to be. As a first step towards whatever our connection might be, we parted ways with tentative plans to have supper the following week. Since actual healing rarely occurs, Jason's appearance at my event wasn't the cathartic conclusion of a movie scenario. He said clumsily, I brought wine in his flat that evening. I opened a pricey bottle of Cabernet because I thought we might need it. His initiative to build my elegant apartment with its floor-to-ceiling windows and simple designs somewhat shocked me, was far different from the difficult life he had envisioned for me. Nice place, he commented, surveying the surroundings. Thank you. We sat down in my living room, enjoying some wine and the Chicago beyond the windows. The skyline glittered. So he started, I've been an ass. The admission made me laugh, but not completely. I have fallen for this. Entire story about you having difficulties, being lost or whatever. I never really inquired about your work. I guess I like being asked. No, you didn't. He swirled his wine thoughtfully. It was comfortable for him to be the one who achieved success and made his parents proud. I had anticipated justifications or the same rewritten history, but honesty disarmed me. In light of everything his parents had tried, he went on, I'm sorry, and I'm truly amazed by what you've created. And Sophia hasn't stopped discussing your platform, suggesting that you're some sort of genius. I simply built what I thought was right and mentioned something that truly helps. He nodded, but on a much bigger scale, saying that people like what I attempt to accomplish as a doctor. It seems like we spoke for hours on end, and maybe for the first time as adults, he asked sincere questions regarding Next Tech. Regarding the difficulties of starting a business from scratch, I inquired about his medical practice and discovered, really curious by his responses when they weren't used to support his superiority as he was departing. Sophia halted at the door because she truly likes you, and you know that she was embarrassed about. She is hoping that you two would become friends, especially if you will be working together after the dinner, but she is also adding you. Acquisition. I'm glad I said that, and I was shocked to realize that I meant it over the following few weeks. As the purchase neared completion, my family ties took a new turn. My parents' territory fluctuated between sincere attempts to comprehend my work and reactive actions resulting from after decades of viewing me through a specific prism. My father attempted to give me awkward lunches. Despite my hectic CEO schedule, my mother asked me if I was eating well between embarrassing phone conversations and business advice. However, there were also instances of sincere communication when my father listened and wanted to view Nextech's platform. My mother listened intently as I described its characteristics, acknowledging that she had never quite grasped technology, but was, "I'm proud of the little but significant moves I've taken, especially the most unexpected." Sophia's contribution was to help me bridge the divide between my worlds as my future sister-in-law and my... She had a distinct viewpoint on the dynamics of the Mitchell family as a professional colleague. "Your parents are trying," she said, informed me one afternoon over coffee that they simply lacked the vocabulary for this particular definition of success that they're acquiring. I noticed that she grinned as she spoke a new language, that she seemed to speak with ease. It took me years to realize that my parents, with whom I grew up, valued academic credentials and professional titles, are other routes to a fulfilling life. Perhaps I can provide some translation assistance. And she performed a good job of contextualizing my knowledge of the computer business by teaching my family accomplishments that were easy for them to comprehend, and occasionally providing a reality check when they slid into. Although her attempts to break old behaviors weren't always successful, they did assist lessen the move to our new world. The purchase was completed on time, making Emma and I overnight centillionaires. The press announcement included our entire identities. It featured expertly taken pictures of my first public recognition as the ghost genius and co-founder of Nextech was coming into their own 6 months after my brother got engaged. The Nextech purchase had closed, and dinner life had settled into a new pattern. Effectively, and I currently served as the head of Horizon Health Technologies Innovation Section. Our platform was being executed in hospitals on 3 continents, with Emma in charge of my office's international expansion. Ignored the Chicago River, whose waters today reflected the changing seasons. As I concluded a text conversation with our development team in Singapore, spring sunshine glinted off its surface. Sophia interrupted my work to remind me to come over for supper tonight. Jason claims he's making dessert, so anticipate emergency cupcakes from the bakery when I bring that wine you enjoyed. He always burns something, which made me smile. These informal family meals had turned quite a monthly custom, something that occasionally would have seemed unthinkable to me a year ago. Sometimes it was just the 3 of us when my parents joined, but Sophia and Jason had a simple friendship. And I valued the fact that working with Sophia had advanced our bond because of her direct approach, mirrored my own in terms of business, and her understanding of my family dynamics demonstrated priceless. She had a deeper understanding of my parents than I occasionally could. Your dad didn't reject your tech career because he didn't understand the fears behind their domineering actions. When he rejected it because he didn't comprehend it and Richard Mitchell despises it, she noted, "I thought you'd fail." Not realizing how much my connection with Jason had changed radically without the hierarchy of a suffering sister and a successful doctor. We found that we were both motivated, meticulous perfectionists who sincerely wanted to enhance healthcare. Today, rather of passing judgment, my parents and I exchanged ideas. The best way to describe it was that we had set new limits with my mother and were no longer trying, making overt attempts to inquire about my work and giving me unwanted comments over how I look. Without making any obvious suggestions for changes, our weekly Sunday calls ceased to be evasive exercises, but real talks. Albeit, they weren't always pleasant. My mother had even went to the next Tekka's offices, where the staff welcomed me with genuine pride after her initial awkwardness. With evident appreciation, the acquisition had provided internal healing as well. Regular treatment gave me the opportunity to prioritize my personal health in ways that I had ignored while working as a startup. I was able to manage the complex feelings surrounding my family's unexpected acknowledgement thanks to my meetings with Dr. Winters. During one session, she mentioned that you have been shielding yourself from their criticism for years. Although protection is no longer as important, the habits still exist. I had heeded her advice to gradually tear down some of those walls, not only with family, but also in creating a larger. Rachel was still my oldest and most reliable friend, but I'd has made connections with other female entrepreneurs through industry, events, and mentoring programs. Overcoming the loneliness that had defined my early career had made way for a select group of individuals who were aware of both my mentoring young women in technology was one of the journey's special joys. Every month, I gave high school females interested in STEM disciplines workshops where I shared not only technical information, but the emotional fortitude required to follow unusual career routes, as my parents consider computer science to be merely a pastime. In line with my personal experience, a 15-year-old told me they wanted me to become a "what do you want" lawyer like my mom. I begged her to build things that matter. Without hesitation, I responded, then built them by saying, "Share resources and find encouragement. Those who, although not being your family, support your vision." And later that night, when I was getting ready for dinner with Jason and your parents, I left the door open for them to understand. Sophia. I thought about how far I'd come and how much I'd longed for outside approval, had achieved financial success, industry acclaim, and even familial recognition. But I learned. Along the journey, I gained something more valuable: the capacity to validate myself. Jason initially showed up with a baked chocolate cake that was remarkably. I hedged my bets on edible and the emergency bakery cupcakes Sophia had foreseen. Acknowledged, laughing, but I'm improving. I've only triggered the smoke alarm once. Sophia showed up this time with wine and information about their upcoming nuptials, while conversation about business, weddings, and family came naturally to those gathered around my dining table. According to Jason, the gossip mom is actually reading books about tech firms. It's better late than never. I discovered tech founders under 30 on her nightstand last week. Never, I remarked later without resentment. As we entered the living room with Sophia asked a question during coffee and dessert that surprised me. Do you ever wish things had been different? Because your family had seen your potential early on, I gave it great thought before responding to, of course, there were times when it would have been less painful and easier, but I'm not sure I would have helped me develop the same fortitude or sense of purpose. I discovered that when no one else believed in me, it's a strong base. With Jason's newly discovered self-awareness. If Mom and I might have grown up even more obnoxious than I was, if my father had been swooning over your IT profession. We laughed. The adventure wasn't done, family, as the sound drifted out over the city lights. Relationships are constantly changing and never really set in stone. Were more challenging discussions and more instances where ingrained behaviors threatened to resurface. But something fundamentally, my value had changed, and I could now see it for myself without the help of my family. Enabled me to appreciate their increasing gratitude without feeling compelled to pardon previous rejections, without forgetting what they taught me, and establishing connections based on our evolving selves rather than our past selves. Success is determined by influence rather than recognition. Beyond my expectations, Standard Nextech had improved patient results and healthcare communication for thousands of people, and I was able to successfully live a life that was according to my principles and vision, irrespective of who gave their approval. As for the family, where perhaps the most important lesson was that relationships can change when we choose the one we're born into. Bring our true selves to them. Not everyone will appreciate your journey. But as I gazed out over the next day, people worth preserving in your life will gradually learn to see you clearly. Looking beyond my office window, I felt thankful for the challenging voyage because it had been the only way to go forward. It was very obvious, but I was pursuing success on my own terms. Meaning, and that more than any purchase agreement or approval from family was the true accomplishment. If my story touched you today, please share any times you had to. If people didn't believe in you, leave a comment below with your story. And if you know someone who, please share this video with everyone who needs to hear this message of self-belief. And don't forget to subscribe for more tales about discovering your own path, even if it deviates from what others anticipate. I appreciate you listening to my trip. Keep in mind that real achievement is about demonstrating things, not about proving people wrong. You yourself